off this recipe, I'm going to be making the pizza dough. I'm going to be using 3 cups of white spelt flour, 1 cup of spring water, and for seasoning, I'm going to be taking this onion and herb seasoning. And after I add in that onion and herb seasoning, I'm going in with this tomato basil seasoning. I'm just going to give that a little mix around, and now I'm going to gradually add in that 1 cup of spring water. I like adding it in gradually because I feel like it gives me a little bit more control when I am trying to get the perfect dough ball texture for whatever type of bread it is that I'm making. So I just combine all of that spring water into that bowl. After adding in that 1 cup of spring water, I'm taking about 2 tablespoons of grapeseed oil or whatever cooking oil you prefer using. I'm just going to mix all of that up with my hands for about 8 minutes, and then I have a dough ball that looks like this. From here, I'm going to be taking this dough and I'm going to be adding it into some parchment paper. I'm just going to tightly wrap it in that parchment paper and set it aside to let the dough rest. This ultimately is just going to make it a little bit easier to work with the dough when it comes time to roll it out. I let it rest for about 35 minutes, but you could let it rest for up to 1 hour. Next, I'm going to be making the pizza sauce. I'm taking some mushrooms and I'm just going to chop them up into some small pieces. I didn't want pretty large pieces because it is pizza sauce, so we're not trying to do too much, not too much. So I chopped them up into pieces like this. I'm taking that cast iron pan with a little bit of grapeseed oil and I'm adding in those mushrooms first because I want the mushrooms to cook the longest. So we're gonna let those cook first in that grapeseed oil, and as those are cooking, I'm going to chop up a little bit of a brown onion. Just add in that brown onion right behind those mushrooms. Just going to continue to keep an eye on that and stir it. Next, I'm taking 1 Roma tomato and I'm just chopping it into cube-like pieces, just like the mushrooms and the onion. We're adding that in there and we're gonna let that cook down a little bit for about 3 minutes on about a medium-high heat. For seasoning, I'm going to be taking the same tomato basil seasoning and a little bit of spring water. So for the spring water, you can take anywhere between 1 cup or 1.5 cups with 6 ounces of tomato paste. Now, the reason I say 1 cup or 1.5 cups, it just depends on if you like a really thick pizza sauce or you like a little bit more of a runnier pizza sauce. I went ahead and I did the 1.5 cups of spring water in total, and I covered it with the lid for a little bit, added a little bit of sea salt, and you guys will see here the texture that I had for my pizza sauce. Next, going to be roasting some vegetables to have as one of our pizza toppings. So this is just a yellow squash, and then I'm also going to be taking a zucchini squash, and I'm just slicing them in these long like strips, followed by the yellow squash and then the zucchini. I'm going to be chopping up some bell peppers. I'm going to be taking first, this is a red bell pepper, and followed by the red bell pepper, I'm going to be taking some green bell pepper. And then the last vegetable I'm going to be taking for our roasted vegetables is going to be some purple onion. And in total, I used about a whole small purple onion, and I just chopped them up. Again, everything I'm chopping in kind of large like pieces. I'm taking about 1 tablespoon of vegan pesto. I'm adding it to those vegetables we just chopped up, tossing it all around. I'm taking some of that same onion and herb seasoning with a little bit of sea salt to your liking, tossing that all around, and I'm going to be grilling all of these vegetables on my cast iron grill. Something I like to do when grilling on cast iron, I like to take a smaller cast iron, put it on top of the vegetables or whatever it is I'm cooking, and apply pressure and press it down. That way I could really get those nice like grill marks and that smoky flavor that you could only get from the grill. After grilling all of those vegetables, we're just going to take them off the grill, add them into a bowl, set them aside. We got some more toppings that we are going to need to prep. So as I prep all of those toppings right now, one of them being cilantro and green onions. Quick little tip, if you guys have green onions, do not buy them more than once, y'all. Put them in a glass cup with a little bit of water. Every time you cook with green onions, cut off that end, add that in back to a glass of water, keep it on your sink, in your refrigerator, whatever. Y'all gonna have green onions just as long as the one I just cut, like a week later. It's the gift that keeps on giving. So don't throw away those green onion roots. Resave them, regrow them, and repeat the cycle. So I got those green onions and cilantro chopped up. I'm gonna set that to the side. I'm just cutting up now a tomato. Next, I'm taking one king oyster mushroom and I'm using a fork just to create this shredded like texture from the king oyster mushroom, and I'm just breaking them apart where I need to and separating any pieces when needed. These king oyster mushroom like shreds are going to be like a barbecue mushroom to go on top of the pizza once it's done cooking, and also going to go on the pizza before we cook it. So I'm just adding those mushrooms into some grapeseed oil, cast iron pan, and we're going to be taking the same seasonings that we've been using throughout this video, which is going to be the onion and herb seasoning and then a little bit of sea salt to your liking. And then I'm just going to add in some of that barbecue sauce to the mushrooms. I didn't cook the mushrooms too long because they are going to go in the oven. They're obviously going to cook even more when they go in the oven. So I just lightly cooked them. And at this point, I turned off the heat right after I added in that barbecue sauce and just set them to the side. Now that we have all of our toppings to go on our pizza, it's now time to roll out that dough. It's been about 35 minutes. I'm just going to break it into two pieces because I'm going to be making two different pizzas. I'm going to be making, as you could see, a smaller pizza and a larger pizza. This is the smaller pizza. This pizza's for me. I wanted a crust. The other one was a thin crust pizza, so it didn't really have a crust. But these are both the pizzas, and I'm actually going to have my husband come in and he's going to be building his pizza, which is the large one, and I'm going to be building my pizza, which is the small one with the crust. So we started off by taking the pizza sauce, and we basically both added the same toppings, ultimately just in a different order, which actually was really interesting to me to watch when I was editing this, because I don't know, it just was interesting. Like I added the grilled vegetables at the bottom layer. He added green onions and mushrooms at the bottom layer, but we added the same toppings just in a different order. So right now we're just about to add all of our toppings before we get ready to put them in the oven, 375 degrees in the oven. But ultimately you just want to check the dough to make sure it's up to your standards. and make sure it's all the way cooked thoroughly. So I finished adding all of my pizza toppings, and he's still adding all of his toppings on his pizza, really getting into it. I'm going to be taking that same vegan pesto from earlier, and I'm just going to add a little bit to the top of my pizza. I'm just going to put it right on top of that tomato, and I'm going to be taking about 1 tablespoon of that vegan pesto for my pizza. I went ahead and added some of that vegan pesto to his pizza, and then look at him. He was like, "Oh, let me get some more of that." So after we added that vegan pesto, I he added a little bit more pasta sauce on top of his pizza. Now we're just showing off our pizzas. Whose pizza looks better? Okay, we got his on the left. Then we got my little small personal size, cute and petite pizza. So while those were in the oven, I got our after toppings ready. More of that cilantro, green onions, and a little bit of sage because we love piling up a bunch of cilantro and green onions after our pizza is done cooking, y'all. Just try it. If you don't already do it, try it. After your pizza comes out the oven, top it off with some cilantro and green onions. Drizzle a little more barbecue sauce. Ooh, so good. I did. Y'all tell me why when the pizzas was cooking, he gonna fall asleep. He gonna fall asleep while your food cooking. Pizza's burnt. But luckily, y'all, I was there to check on it. I added a little bit more of the grilled vegetables. I had to spice his pizza up a little bit. We had to just elevate it to the next level. So now I'm just slicing my pizza, making sure that the dough was cooked all the way through because my pizza was a little bit thicker than his. As I mentioned, I wanted a crust. His is a thin crust. So from here, pizza looks good. Give y'all a little look at it. Now I'm just going in with those after toppings, which is some cilantro, green onions, fresh basil, and some more of those barbecue oyster mushrooms that we cooked earlier, just to top off the pizza. Getting a little bite, y'all. And then I'm just going to do the same thing for his pizza. And yeah, y'all. Why I steal his bell pepper? It just looks cuter. Y'all know your man's food be looking better than yours. Don't play. Why you say you don't want nothing to eat, and then he bring the food and you eat all his food? Something about his food just look better. And look at me stealing my mushrooms to put back on his pizza. So I made up for taking his bell pepper, y'all. Just adding the same toppings: green onions, cilantro, basil, and a little bit of fresh fennel. And that was pretty much our build your own pizza night at home, y'all. I ended up using his pizza as the model pizza because it just looked good, y'all. It looked really good. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in my next video.